Hello, furry friends. How are you doing? It's Moon and Leo time. So, as we've discussed in previous videos, but in case you're a first timer, this is not about the moon being in Leo currently. The moon is actually in Libra right now. This is if at the time of your birth, in your natal chart, the moon was in the sign of Leo, okay? So this is about you potentially or somebody you know. Go to astro.com and plug in your birth date, time if you have it. It can be really important, especially if the moon changed signs on the day you were born. And then you should be able to find it pretty quickly right off the bat. You can also put your birth date, time, place, all the information you have in the comments, and I'm happy to, when I have the time, look it up for you. All right, Moon in Leo. So again, we know what the moon is all about. It's emotional expression, emotional security. Often we develop our emotional reactions and our unconscious responses to emotional situations when we're children, up to about the ages of 7 or 8. From birth and onward is when we're most impressionable. So very often the moon sign and its placement in the chart and aspects that other planets make with it, which of course we can't go through in a 20-minute video, plus it's all very personal to you, can tell a lot about how the childhood affected you or, again, the person that you're doing information on. So if you or somebody you know has Moon in Leo, this can help give you some nice insight. You don't even have to believe in astrology. If any of it makes sense to you at all, just use it as a tool for being a less shitty person or for understanding other people better. So the moon, security, Leo, creating. Security through creating. Leo has a reputation of being a very dramatic sign, normally associated with thespians and designers and anybody that seeks fame through their creativity. But of course, Leo is also the sign of the child, so it could be through working with children, because through working with children, an adult mind does have to get to their level, which is a very creative and spontaneous level. And in fact, Moon in Leo tends to maintain a childlike quality about them throughout their entire lives. So the interesting thing, or one of them, I say that a lot, don't I? About Moon in Leo's, what it tells you potentially about your childhood. As you can imagine, the moon is connected mostly with your mother or your mother figure, which doesn't have to be your biological mother. And because the sign is in Leo, this could also point towards the father, Leo being a masculine sign. So with the moon in Leo, very often any attempts at getting attention in your childhood could have two different effects. So if you were indulged a lot as a child and you were given all the attention you wanted to the detriment of perhaps other people's needs or even other siblings' needs, then there's a tendency to believe that everybody wants to pay attention to you and wants to hear what you have to say and hear your ideas and see you act out the trials and tribulations of your day or your life. And very often there's a sense that if people don't indulge you like your parent or parents did, then they clearly must not be worth your time. And that is not always the case. Just because your parent or parents did not create boundaries does not mean that creating boundaries is rejection. And what a prideful sign like Leo does not appreciate is rejection. And so conversely, if as a child your vying for attention was met mostly with contempt or rejection or anything at all that was a negative emotion, like anger, for instance, then it is very possible that over time you learn not to ask for attention. You might even learn that your creative ideas and the parts that you want to act out and even just talking about the details of your day would just be bothersome to most people. And you might learn an insecurity in your creativity and your ability to show and receive emotions. And so, therefore, you might learn to become a little bit more reticent, which is not too happy. For a sign like Leo, there is a need to express and be exuberant. It's a fire sign and it's masculine. So it needs to be expressing and combusting. And it's a fixed sign as well, which means the emotional behaviors that were learned by you unconsciously as a child may be a little bit harder to fix. And as the ego is pretty strong in a prideful sign like Leo, one has to be careful about the wounded ego getting in the way of developing better relationships with other people. Because if your relationship to yourself is based solely on approval from other people, and maybe even you're still vying for approval from your parents too, if they did not give you what you required, then you're always going to be unhappy when you're looking to other people to approve of you. So the first thing you have to do is, and again, it just depends on what your unconscious reactions are. If it is that you expect other people to listen to you and dote on you and to think that everything you have to say is the best thing ever or else, either way, rejection is still going to hit you pretty hard. Just depends on which way it goes. So you could be prone to discarding people that don't indulge your every emotional whim. So every time, and remember, the moon in Leo can get a bit dramatic. So if your drama puts off other people, then yeah, you could look at it from the point of view that maybe they aren't your people, but you also could look at it from the point of view of, is this drama creating stress in me that I really don't need? Is the drama always blaming other people for my feelings of rejection? And I think it's important to understand that while people have to own their responses and reactions, that's what the moon is about. So your own responses and reactions have to be owned as well. And the other thing that you could keep in mind too is that if you're feeling stuck and unappreciated, and like your sense of emotional worth is not worthy of another person's love or affection, what you can do is just start creating and doing things that you enjoy for yourself. Do not try to get the attention or the approval of other people from your creative endeavors, whatever that might be for you. We are all creating stuff all the time. So when you cook, you're creating. When you make a schedule for the day, you're creating. And whatever you're really good at making and creating and imagining, try to do more of that just for yourself and see how that helps you tap into your own ability to enjoy creating for the sake of creating. What that can turn out to for a moon in Leo is to enjoy feeling and to creating emotional connections with other people just for the sake of the emotional connection, not because you're going to become that person's favorite person, or because you're going to be with that person for the rest of your life, or because they need to approve of you all the time and tell you how wonderful you are all the time. I will say, though, that a moon in Leo partner, sometimes even more so than a sun in Leo, really needs to hear a lot how wonderful they are and how you really appreciate what they give to you in a relationship. Everybody likes to hear that, but like, I don't really need to hear that stuff a lot. I don't get my emotional security is often more by, hey, let's spend some time together. Let's go have some adventures together. Whereas Moon and Leo would probably, they want to hear all the good stuff about them, how wonderful they are. Be sure to praise them when they do things for you. if they don't make a big deal out of it, I can guarantee you that they will love if you make a big deal out of all the favors that they do for you. Leos also like to be seen as perfect in general. Venus in Leo wants to be seen as the perfect lover in every sense of the word. They want to be on a pedestal. Moon in Leo wants to be seen as the sort of like the steadfast romantic creator. So they would love to be appreciated for their art and whatever they form, whether it's forming a character in a play that they're in, or they could be designing a house. They could be really creative, good architects. There's so many different ways to put this. It's not just all about painting and drawing and singing, although that's of course part of it too. It's important, especially when the Moon in Leo is a child, to be supported in their creative endeavors, and just don't tell them something that they do sucks. Just don't do that. That thwarting of a young Moon in Leo will stay with them for a long time, and they will end up hiding their creativity and not going out with it and giving it to the world. And of course, there is the tendency to be overly confident and arrogant to compensate for the attention and the approval they may or may not have received as children. And you also have to remember that we all perceive things differently. So the Moon in Leo, again, because it's an ego-based energy in a feminine and receptive-based planetary body like the Moon. So the energies are a little discordant, right? So when that happens, I find in a Moon sign that there's often perceptions of childhood that don't meld with the other siblings a lot of the time. And that's pretty normal. Most siblings will give you totally different accounts of their childhood experiences, and it's all based on their perspective for the most part. So, Moon in Leo, though, when they fall in love, man, they are pretty steadfast. You can look at this as being a really, really ardent, romantic, and a thespian again. And when you're in a relationship or friendship with this type of person, chances are there's a part of you in here too. And sometimes the Moon in Leo is called the closet show-off, because again, those discordant energies of the Moon being receptive and soft and feminine, and Leo being more active and seeking that other people's approval. What was I just gonna say? Okay, I'll get back to it, I'm sure. Whatever it is. So creativity is a really big deal when any sign is in Leo. So the other thing that you might check out with too is that very often, the closet show-off thing. I got it. The closet show-off. So sometimes the subject will look for attention in their own ways, depending again on what and how they received attention as a child. Any amount of attention might be good for them. But let's assume that they generally seek out healthy attention. It'll get to the point sometimes where they will get accolades for what they're doing, and they'll start progressing perhaps in the field that they've chosen. And at some point it occurs to them, should I even have an ego about this? Because the Moon isn't really sure about that. Emotionally, it questions, because again, sometime in its early life, it was a bit overly sensitive to being told that they weren't good enough. Or I've seen this happen in some people where they were very creative, very sensitive types, and maybe they were even told that they were too smart, or They may have required advanced apprenticeship with somebody, and they were basically told, no, as if to say, we don't really care that you're so talented. Sorry, but you've got brothers and sisters, and we have to pay attention to them, and we can't afford to send you to this school or that school. Again, it could all be totally valid reasons for not giving the attention or the further studies or the further encouragement. There could be plenty of good reasons, but either way, this particular placement is going to take it harder than pretty much any other placement from the early childhood. Some famous people with Moon in Leo, one of my very favorite famous people ever, and has been for many, many, many years. Not alive anymore, at least not in his current form, but David Bowie was a Capricorn with Moon in Leo, which is interesting, discordant energies as well. And, when he was growing up, he was always described when he was, acting or presenting himself, that he had unusual poise for his age. Part of that comes from the inherent maturity of the Capricorn that tends to have a little bit more of an old soul vibe, but the Leo moon can give an otherwise shy person or quiet person, when they're out performing or doing something that they love, they suddenly are just bursting with a personality you didn't even know existed, because they're in the throes of that creative passion, which is really a spontaneous creativity in Leo. And so that's really what Moon in Leo wants to do. Wants to be spontaneous, wants to be childlike, does not want to be told how to feel, when to feel it, would rather not be rejected, but rejection can also be turned into fuel to do better. And so this is where Moon in Leo can take a lesson from its fiery cousin, Aries, and not take it so hard. So the biggest lessons here in Moon in Leo: create. Don't be afraid to create based on what other people are telling you about your work. Be comfortable with what you're doing, with who you're creating with. Be aware of the sense of drama. Notice if it's causing you undue stress in your life in some way, shape, or form. Use the drama for other things, perhaps, or for creating maybe more romantic relationships with your significant other. And remember, if you feel like there are times when you're not sure whether you have a right to have an ego at all, and you start to shrink from any acclaim that you're getting for your ideas and for your creativity, just get rid of that. Don't shrink, expand. Leo needs to expand. Leo is the lion, and it's royal. Leos are royal, and they want to be loved more than pretty much any other sign, and adored. And it's okay if that happens. Don't doubt that you are worthy of it. Base your worthiness on what you're doing now, not on anything you were told or anything that happened to you before this particular moment. Then the last thing that I would say for Moon in Leo: if you have a false sense of pride, again, if you were indulged, if you were doted on maybe a little bit too much, remember that when those unconscious reactions come up to strike back when somebody gives you criticism, don't let the criticism stop you from continuing to do what you do, but allow the criticism to help you hone your craft. Say thank you to the person, even if they're a total asshole about it. You can control your reaction. You don't have to act like the wounded lion. You can use that criticism and use other people's rejection of you and really turn it into a means of getting better at what you're doing. In fact, what would it be like if you sought out criticism? Have you ever done that before? Have you ever had somebody tell you something about you that created that bubbling feeling of defensiveness, and then give it 10 or so seconds, stopped it, and continued to listen? Think about rewiring any of those unconscious responses, whether it's to get defensive and not allow somebody else's opinion to make you a better person or better at what you do, or if it's the response of not knowing if you're worthy, not knowing if you should show off your creativity, not knowing if you should share your feelings. Just share, be yourself. Use other people's approval not to determine whether you continue to do what you love, but to help you become better at what you love, or better at loving. That's not so bad either. So there's your Moon in Leo. I know I only gave out David Bowie, but he's all that matters anyways. He's enough of an example. Next moon sign is Moon in Virgo. That's security through analyzing. Gosh, that doesn't sound right, does it? Moon in Virgo, very interesting. But I gotta love me some Virgo because I'm Pisces. I'm opposite, and opposites do attract. So I hope you learned something. 20 minutes isn't really enough to give you a ton of information. So if you want to know more, if you want a birth chart reading, if you want a short horoscope for the next 6 to 12 months, just leave a note in comments and I'll get a hold of you. I love to talk about you. Whoever you are fascinating because everyone's chart is so different, and you're not me. That's another reason to be fascinating. Okay, I hope you guys have a good night. I will talk to you later.